All I wanted was a fantasy story to read. That's all. So when someone said, hey, you should check out Goblin Slayer, I figured, sure, why not? And I just feel like, I feel like they should have warned me about Goblin Slayer. And before we get into deep on this topic of Goblin Slayer and why, when you recommend someone something to read, you should probably warn them on what they're getting into, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because a huge majority of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed, and it would mean the world to me if you did. Did you do it yet? Did you? Okay, let's talk about Goblin Slayer and why I wish someone had warned me about it, and why you should warn your friends on certain aspects in a story that you recommend. Because here's the thing, all I wanted was a fantasy adventure story to read. I wanted a bunch of characters to meet up with each other, characters of different classes and races, going into a vast adventure and meeting up with new characters, going into dungeons, slaying beasts, slaying enemies, and coming in on top. And, you know, maybe there's this big overall narrative that, you know, is encompassing the entire story. So when someone said, "Hey Tyler, you should read Goblin Slayer," I was like, "Perfect. This is what I want." And at the beginning, that's what I thought I was getting. Like when I first saw the main character, the priestess, I was like, this is perfect. This is what I want to get into. And you know, the priestess, she meets with the guild girl, and the guild girl is the one who runs the front office, and she's the one that hands out all the different contracts to the adventurers, like, hey, do you want to go find some gold? Here's this contract. Oh, do you want to go fight a troll? Here's this contract. And so I thought, man, this is super cool. And so the priestess, she joins the party. They're all pretty low ranked adventurers, and I'm like, man, we are gonna follow this girl up until the point where she becomes just a super powerful priestess. And literally within the first chapter, all of those characters get murdered by goblins, and that's fine. That's fine. Like, I understand that, you know, with the story, you know, you gotta, you know, show how evil some of the enemies are, and I just didn't think that I was gonna experience as much rape. Yeah, I didn't think there was gonna be so much rape in the story. So let me explain. Goblins are like the most evil creatures in this universe, apparently. So when the priestess and her first party of characters go in to fight these goblins, I'm like, oh, these are probably pretty easy, and they're pretty small, and they immediately murder every single person in her party. But then with the women, they then start stabbing them and ripping their clothes off and just start raping them. And I'm like, holy crap, what am I freaking reading? And the goblins are just raping these girls, and then all of it, like, you know, luckily the Goblin Slayer comes in and murders all these goblins, and, you know, he even murders the goblin children, and the priestess is like, you're even gonna kill the children? And the Goblin Slayer is like, heck yeah, I'm gonna freaking kill those children. And so you would think that after chapter 1 I would just be like, oh, I should probably, you know, I don't really want to read this anymore. But I continued to read, thinking like, oh, this was just a one-time thing. Wrong. I mean, what did I expect? A manga called Goblin Slayer? What's like, in the main character's name is Goblin Slayer? Like, what did I think? What did I think? I don't know what I was thinking. Of course, there's going to be more goblin slaying. So, you know, they keep, you know, so she gets a new party. The priestess gets a new party of characters with all different classes and ranks. The Goblin Slayers, like, you know, he's still slaying goblins. And anytime they go into a dungeon, we're seeing more women get raped, and we're seeing a lot of naked women. And gosh, at one point, like, one of the tactics that the goblins use to protect themselves in, like, battle is they have these massive shields where they have, like, naked women strapped in. So, like, when the people are shooting arrows, these arrows are hitting these women who are, like, and I'm just like, what the frick am I reading? I just wanted a fantasy type story with a bunch of characters going on an adventure. I wasn't ready for all this female nudity and female degradation. I was not ready for that, nor did I want it. And so after I read, like, I think I read 3 or 4 volumes, I went to my friend and was like, bro, why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me about Goblin Slayer? He's like, what are you talking about, warn you? You said you wanted a fantasy type story with adventures and characters. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't warn me that there was going to be rape in there. And he was like, oh, well, you know, there's rape in that first chapter. And I'm like, there's rape in almost every chapter. Like it's so gross. And so, like, ultimately what I've realized is this: whenever if had there been rape in just the first chapter and then it never happened again, I'd be like, okay, that was just like one story part. Like, it's an event that happened, doesn't have to happen again. But gosh, like, it's a trope. It's something that happens consistently in the story. One of the main characters in the story, the sword maiden, she went blind from these goblins and then she was raped by them, and then, like, you know, the Goblin Slayer, his whole, like, village of people were, like, raped by goblins. And so, like, it's not like oh yeah, there's only one chapter and then that happens. It's like a big thing in this world that goblins freaking rape people. So, like, if you're gonna recommend something to someone, make sure you tell them, hey, like, this is a common thing that happens. So, like, if I were to go, I'm gonna spoiler alert, by the way, if I go and I say, hey, so and so, Brad, you should read Identity Crisis. There is a rape scene in Identity Crisis, but I don't have to tell him that, because it happens literally in one panel. It's not even shown, it's implied, and then that's that. Like, it's not like a constant thing. But with Goblin Slayer, it is just a consistent thing that these goblins rape women, and it's nasty. It's so nasty. So do I think you should read Goblin Slayer? No, it's pretty brutal. I got pretty bored with the story as well. Like, I was like, okay, I get it. There's goblins, and this guy Goblin Slayer, he kills them. And I'm not gonna lie, though, I was a big fan. None of these characters have names, but I was a big fan of the cowgirl. Cowgirl was cute. I like cowgirl. I wish that Goblin Slayer would see how much cowgirl loves him. Sorry. And I hope that in some universe where there's an ending to Goblin Slayer, that cowgirl and Goblin Slayer get together and there's no more goblins. So, oh my gosh. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and hey, thank you so much for my patrons who make these kind of videos possible, as well as make the comics and manga that I make possible. And if you want to be a subscriber on our Patreon, check out patreon.com/DrawNTalk, where you can read my comics and manga. All right. You have a silly goose time. And now